Everybody out there, welcome to What Matters to You. This is MLA Shane Getz, and I'm joined today with Dr. Allan Parr. And this gentleman I've got to know over the last number of years. He's quite the character. I'm not going to tell his story for him, but this is a pretty interesting thing. Can you imagine starting off in a different country, in a different state, and ending up in a different country, a different province, and having the same hometown name? The spelling might be a different, but you want to talk about serendipity or the good Lord intervening. So, Dr. Allan Parr, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and maybe you can just tell us a little background. So, the catch for everybody out there is Onaway. The name is Onaway. So, how did this work out?
Well, they say, my grandmother used to say, life goes in a circle, so I've ended up back at the other end of the circle, but on a different side. I was born the oldest of seven, four boys and three girls, on a farm in lower part of the northern peninsula.
And that was in Michigan?
In Onoway, Michigan, which is located 13 miles from Lake Huron, 65 miles from Lake Michigan, and 50 miles from the Straits of Mackinac. I always just wanted to be a farmer. That's all I ever intended to be. And so I was just a livestock person. But when I went to school, my dad's younger sister was 16 years older than me, or 13 years older. And my cousin rode a child, and she was 13 years older.
Okay.
They ended up having a lot of the same teachers I did when I went to school. Okay. And I had no intentions of leaving the farm. All I wanted to do was finish high school, go back and work on the farm.
What kind of farming did you have? Was it mixed farming down there too?
Yeah, we were, I'd say mixed, but it was mixed livestock.
Okay.
We had Holstein cows, milk cows. Hereford Shorthorn Cross cow-calf operation. Okay. A large flock of sheep, and we had quite a big bunch of Yorkshire sows that we farrowed 3 times a year.
Oh, you guys had your hands full.
Yeah, and then my grandfather bred and raised draft horse crosses. So we had to have a lot of grain, a lot of forage and everything. From the time I was 7 years old, I was in the barn every day. I had chores to do.
Yeah.
And so when I went to school, it was the same thing. When we first started the school, we had to walk. We had no regular road into the farm. We used the old railroad tracks where they hauled out logs.
Oh, no kidding.
And the town of Onaway has an interesting history. At one time, they were the largest manufacturer of wooden bicycle rims and steering wheel rims, and parts of the old factory still sits in that little town.
No kidding. Now, what year was this, Allan, when all that was taking place? When you were still walking?
I was born in '42. I graduated in 1961. Okay. I never had any intentions of going to university. Never. And
so, what changed your mind?
Well, I think it was a little bit of collusion between 5 of my teachers and my cousin and my dad's sister, my aunt. Okay. At graduation, we had to get together at the farm, and all 5 of those teachers had went to Michigan State University, and the ag teacher was the most recent one, and they really hounded me to take the advanced English courses and the advanced math courses, and I said, what do I need that for? I'm just going to go back and farm. But my Aunt Jo and my cousin Rhoda set me down that night and just said, my nickname then, because I wasn't even 5 foot tall, was Skeeter. And they said, Skeeter, there's nothing here for you, for somebody with your talent. And I didn't know what to say. And they talked to me quite a while. I said, well, I made a trip to Michigan State University because they took a lot of us seniors down there in a bus just to tour the university. And so I said, I've never even thought about applying. And my dad's sister looked at me, and she's got a smile on her face, and she said, Jim, and that was the first name of the ag teacher, have you got that package? He walked over and put it down and said, we filled everything out. All you have to do is sign it.
No kidding.
It'll go down in the post office on Monday.
That's pretty awesome. So yeah, they definitely took a liking and shining to you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's been a long journey, but I was raised to work, think for myself, and if an opportunity come up, even if it wasn't what you were really interested in, give it a try to see if you liked it or what you could do with it.
Yeah.
And that came from my grandfather.
Well, and you talked a bit too, back in those days, and not different than a lot of folks today here. Things were a little tight for cash back then too.
It was. There was no money to pay for me to go to school, to go to university.
Yeah.
And back then, the scholarships just weren't available. But I had quite a bit of livestock to sell.
Yeah.
Because my grandfather, they didn't pay us kids, but since I was the oldest and working all the time, every year he gave me a beef heifer, a ewe lamb, and a Yorkshire sow piglet. And so I acquired quite a bit of livestock.
Yeah.
And I saved my money, but when I went down the first year, my whole first year was paid for by the livestock I sold. And the next year I was worried. And my dad had a cousin that worked for Safeway, so he took me under his wings, and I got my butcher's ticket.
Well, this is pretty cool because right now we're working on stuff, with parity of esteem, and some of the teachers nowadays, they look down their nose at anybody who has a trade. So you're a doctor sitting here, and you got your butchering certificate.
Yeah.
So you're a tradesperson as well?
Yep. I still am a tradesperson at heart because I have what I call a meat shack on my place, and it's well insulated, stainless steel equipment and everything. It's a social get-together during hunting season with my hunting partners and the neighbors who hunt, and I'm the teacher. I'm teaching some of them how to cut up meat, and I process the meat and everything for all our neighbors. They have to come over and cut and wrap and the supplies. There's no money changes hands or anything. But it's a social get-together. They'll come over to grind and wrap, and then they'll bring their kids. And so it's just a nice family get-together. It's a lot of fun.
Well, and it's, interesting how we lose touch. So I grew up on a farm as well and didn't get my meat cutting ticket, but I got the lopping the heads off the turkey ticket taken care of. And when my wife and I, my wife there too, she was a city girl and I'm the farm boy, and 40 acres was the compromise.
Yeah.
And turned out it was 10 acres per kid, but we did our own chickens and turkeys and everything else. And you would get people from the city coming out. We're a little disconnected from where our food comes from. And they couldn't believe that that's actually where meat comes from. So my kids, they're no different than you growing up. They know where the food comes from, what has to be done.
That's the thing. I see even difference in the little town of Onoway to the farmers are out here. A lot of these youngsters in the town of Onaway don't even know where their food comes from.
Yeah.
And, I really firmly believe in that, so.
Well, and everybody talks about sustainable living and everything else, and then we're not teaching that anymore. It used to be second nature on the farm and Grandpa's place or however that worked out. Yeah. So now you're in university, you're mentors got you under their wing, got you kicked off there. Now you got your meat cutting ticket, and your uncle helped you out. And where did it go from there, Allan?
Well, I went to work for the Michigan Livestock Exchange for 3 summers, going around to all the fairs, giving brief talks, and actually cutting up lamb, pork, and beef in front of all these people.
Okay.
And a lot of them were city people. And I did that for 3 summers. And then by then I was finishing my Bachelor of Science at Michigan State in Animal Husbandry with a real push for physiology.
Okay.
And the reason I got a real push for physiology, my major advisor at Michigan State when I first started was Jacob Hoffer. He was in charge of the swine program at Michigan State in the Animal Husbandry Department. He got a big boost up to the Dean's office, Dean of Agriculture.
Okay.
And yet, before he went, he taught a course I took. And he said, Allan, he said, I think you should get out of just general animal husbandry and push to physiology, because he said, you asked me so damn many questions about the interaction between human beings and animals and the products, he said. And he only kept one student to advise when he moved to the dean's office, and that was me.
No kidding.
And he had a big influence on me. I still remember his real deep voice, slow talking, but he had it upstairs. And he was the one that got me when I finished my bachelor's, the major professor in the meat science department, which was part of the animal husbandry, said, "Allan, I think you ought to go to graduate school." I said, "Well, I haven't even thought about it." He said, "Well, I got a friend at Oklahoma State says they could use one." So I went to Oklahoma State in 1966, September. But I was drafted in March of 1966, but I failed my physical.
Okay.
So
and the draft for 66 would have had you over in Southeast Asia?
Vietnam. I'd been over in Vietnam with my younger brother.
And did your brother make it home?
Yep, but he got Agent Orange. He's in tough shape.
Yeah.
And so I went to Oklahoma State for the first year. I got my coursework all out of the way in 1 year. I'm very fortunate. I have quite a photographic memory.
Oh, no kidding.
And so then I took a summer off because my dad was setting up a business in New York City, Middletown, New York. It was a sod farm. But they called it a turf nursery out there in a landscaping business. So I went out and ramrodded the crew from June until November. And then I got in the car and drove all the way back to Oklahoma State to finish doing my research part and write my thesis.
What was your thesis on?
Is the effect of hot, and it was a basic applied research because it was for Hormel. We funded it. It was to study the hot processing of pork with the injection for pork products like hams and stuff, processing the brine. So as soon as they came off of the kill floor, we injected the brine and everything, and then I had to study the color retention and all that stuff. And so it was applied.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so that was what I was doing. And I got back there, and I get back, and I go home for Christmas, and I come back. And my professor says, "Allan, I just got a call from Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. They've got a fellow in the animal husbandry department's got booted up to the dean's office, and they needed an instructor down there." So 3 days later, I was in Lubbock, Texas, as an instructor in the Department of Animal Science.
I'll be darned.
And
so did you get your degree at that time when you were teaching or no?
No, I still didn't have my master's, but he told me to go.
Yep.
So when I got through in June, I went back up, finished my research, and started writing my thesis. But I didn't have it quite all done. He said, "That's no problem. We got a call from Michigan State. They got a spot for you there for your PhD." So I go to Michigan State. And then I go back at Christmas time in '68 and finished writing my thesis. Then drove back in January back to Michigan State to go finish up that.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got that far. And then in December 72, I was deciding whether I was going to go to University of Michigan Medical School, because I would have been a family doctor, or Michigan State University to take the extra year and a half I'd have to get my DVM, become a vet.
Okay.
And I specialized in physiology, so that's where I was. And another professor on my committee said, "Hey, Parr, would you be interested in a 2-year stint in Australia at the University of Sydney in veterinary school, teaching and doing a postdoc, all paid?" Well, when you're 30 years old and single and the thoughts of going to Australia, it didn't take me long to make up my mind.
So now you're jumping across the big pond. You're down in Australia. How the heck was that?
It was quite an experience because Australia was quite a ways behind us on technology.
Okay.
Communication technology, basically. But I found the people really wonderful people. A lot of them they came out from the convict families, you know.
Yeah.
So they still had that kind of anti-government, anti-control attitude. But they were very good students. I taught 2 years of classes there. And it went really well. I guess I was pretty good because I got second place ranking both years. And the professor that was ahead of me, I thought was probably the best professor I'd ever seen.
No
so
kidding.
I thought it was pretty good. And he used to sit in on my classes and then afterwards give me a tip or here and there.
That's awesome.
And I thought that was really nice. So, and when I finished my last year, I wanted to come back to the States. And I came home for a visit in early 76. And my uncle who was on the farm with us, he'd passed away. And I was just too far away to get home or anything.
Okay.
So I went back to Australia and went to work for a big international company. At the time, it was the largest agricultural company in the world. It was based in UK, but they have large subsidiaries in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Nigeria, all over.
Yeah.
And so I took that job, and they decided they were going to set up a subsidiary in Canada.
Oh, no kidding.
So they told me in 1976 and early in the spring that they were going to send me up here. So I got on a plane in Sydney, Australia on the 20th of November, 1976.
Which is summer.
It's summer, going into the, but it was 107 degrees and raining like hell. And when I landed in San Francisco and then caught a flight up here, it was 31 degrees below Fahrenheit then, and snowing and blowing like hell.
Yeah.
And all of my winter clothes were at the home farm in Onaway, Michigan. And I got into it was Edmonton House, downtown Edmonton.
Okay.
The company had booked me a room there. It was a suite there. I got on the phone and called my mother. She got up early the next morning, 3-hour drive in the winter to the Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario airport and put my clothes on Air Canada.
Oh, geez, no kidding.
And 12 hours later,
You got
I
your
had
gear?
them. Thank God for mothers.
No kidding.
That's just it's a convoluted story how I got here.
So now you're dropped off in Edmonton, and then what? What happens? You setting up the company up here?
Yeah,
or
they
there's other staff, or-
they had a office in Vancouver, but they wanted to set a company up here because it involved animal livestock feed product developments.
Okay.
And
did you work with a university here at all, or no?
No, I had 3 offers when I came back to North America. The places I'd already been and taught at Michigan State, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech. But I didn't want to be in the academics anymore.
Yeah. Time to do some application. The farm boy's coming out.
Yep. I'm still a hayseed farm boy. So anyway, we got that set up. We had set up an office here. They bought land here, and after 6 years, they decided they were going to sell out. And I didn't like the company that bought it, so I took a buyout.
Okay.
Exactly 1 week later, I bought a newspaper in the dairy industry called Dairy Contact, based out of Calgary.
Well, and that's kind of an interesting journey. We're going to have to explore this a bit. So you're a doctorate. You've got all that.
Yeah.
You've done the academic side. Now you're into, the animal feed production and those type of things. And then you decide to get into the newspaper business. You heard about the left turn in Albuquerque. How the heck did that happen and all?
Well, I had a very good PhD committee at Michigan State University. I got through my coursework in 2 years. And so I was allowed to take a lot of other courses if I wanted to, because I was allowed to take 6 extra courses every semester that wasn't in my curriculum. So I took accounting, advertising, marketing, and personnel management.
No kidding.
And the personnel management was the one that taught me one of the best lessons I ever had. And the big Kroger food company, we have this guy in marketing was excellent. He brought in executives from different companies 3 times a week for 10 weeks, 2-hour sessions. And it was probably the best course I've ever taken.
No kidding.
And this guy from Kroger, he was the one that really taught. He really emphasized personnel management.
Okay.
And he laid down a lot of stuff. But thank God for taking accounting. Thank God for taking marketing and advertising.
Yeah.
So it made me very adaptable. I find nowadays too many people coming out of the university have tunnel vision.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to try something. If an opportunity comes up, you think, well, geez, I might be like that. Take it.
Transferable skill sets, right? That's the other one too.
Yeah. It's so that's how it went. And then I owned Dairy Contact till 2004. In 2003, bovine encephalitis hit, and mad cow disease just wiped up the newspaper publication. So I finally closed it down. And the same week, I bought the Lac Ste Anne Bulletin, which is a totally different newspaper.
Well, and this is where I not at that point in time, but that's where I kind of knew you was from, me getting into politics there, I guess 6 years ago and change, or 5 years elected.
Yeah.
And it's like growing up where I grew up, it was the popular press. Like you always had those type of things that came out. It was a little paper. That was, what was going on. The Journal was a big thing. And the Sun back then, like that was the big city papers. But those little papers, that's what connected people. And Grandma always had that. And then the community voice. And now you're into the Lac Ste Anne Bulletin. So now, did you find Onaway at that time?
Well, it was funny. I got a divorce from my first wife. She worked for Air Canada in 1987, and as soon as that happened, I sold a house. It was 30th Avenue and 116th Street, right next to the Derrick Golf Club and the Grey Nun Retirement Center.
Okay.
And I bought a place at Nob Hill, which is just Devil's Lake, just east of Devil's Lake out there. And they had a development there in October 1987. And then I knew about Onoway. Well, I knew about Onoway because I drove up to go moose hunting. And that's the other thing you talk about moose hunting. I had an outfitting business from 1980 to 1992.
No kidding.
Moose hunting up in the Simonette River Basin, just south of Grand Prairie, and then a bear hunting outfit out southwest of Mayorsthorpe.
Nice.
And so, and I love the rural area. And so then I got together with another lady who and we moved from Nob Hill over to Range Road 24, south or west of Onaway, and just south off the highway that goes to Alberta Beach.
Okay.
And then I bought the newspaper, and then in 2007, the developer wanted my 20 acres, and I sold it for a good $1. So then I leased a home site on 160 acres north of Share Hill.
Oh, okay, right on.
So every time I moved, since I've come to Canada, I moved farther away from civilization. And the farm boy is still there with me. It doesn't change, But the little local newspaper is probably, the careers I've had, has probably been the most enjoyable, except when the COVID panic hit.
Yeah.
And that made things really tough. But I really enjoy dealing with the small town people, the farmers, and everybody. And that's what I deal with.
Yeah. Well, and from my perspective too, like I didn't realize that there was, journalistic bias until I got into this gig.
Yeah.
And, for folks at home, I'm 6'2", 230 pounds, and I'm invisible.
Yeah.
Unless the papers want me to be visible, and they'll take the worst thing ever. But your little paper will take what I have to say, because I want to reach and talk to folks on a personal level and share some of my trials and tribulations too, so they know who's on the other side of the fence. And you guys take it. And Allan, I've had so much positive feedback. The youngest boy, I think, came up, he was 13 years old, or 13 years old, I think, and his mom had said at the time. He reads it. He reads the little paper. He likes the articles I throw in there, up to the seniors sitting in the seniors' homes. So that breadth that it covers, I don't know too many other circulations that can have a target audience of 13 to 85. That's something to be said for what you've created there.
Well, I just got a call here 1st of May from a lady who used to live in the Onaway area. She's at a home in Barrhead now. She called, ordered the paper mailed to her. She misses the local paper. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
To me, if I mail the paper, I believe it's good because it's either laying on the table, kitchen table, or in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So, that's and when we had the 20th anniversary for the paper, since I bought it, I had so many people said they were really thankful that I held on during COVID,
Yeah.
which is really, really difficult. I've been in the newspaper business for going to the 43rd year. And from 2020, 21, 22, and part of 23 was the toughest years I've ever had in the business.
So why was that? Did folks stop reading it, or what happened?
No. We lost 75% of our real estate business overnight.
Okay.
Because people didn't go visit.
Yeah.
A lot of our small businesses, plumbers, electricians, stuff, went out of business. And some people after 3 years just give up and retired.
Yeah.
And so we really lost a lot of business. It's coming back slowly, which I'm good. The only reason I kept it going, because I'm pushing 82, was I had a lot of the businesses in Onaway really encouraged me to keep it going. They use it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you did, and I'm glad they encouraged you too. And again, if anyone's wondering out there, best bang for the buck, Onaway, give them a call at the Lac Ste Anne Bulletin, and they'll get your ads in there. And readership, like it's pushing 30,000 people, I think, isn't it?
Well, it probably is, because we mail right now to almost 7,900 households.
Yep.
Mail.
Yeah.
I take it to the post office every Monday morning. I get up at 4 o'clock and deliver them to all the post offices.
Yeah. Well, and the other cool thing too, I didn't realize this, but those big papers, they'll pick up what I write in there too if they want to target me or go after me. So the CBCs, the XYZs, sometimes Ys, they'll also grab little those things if they want to go after me. So other people are looking at your stuff too.
Yeah. Well, I've tried to keep it strictly a local newspaper.
Yeah.
I've had one of the regulations was it's like before you, there was 2 other MLAs, George and O'Neill. Yeah. I carried their information.
Yeah.
That's out of respect for all of the MLAs. And same thing with the MPs, it was Rob Merrifield and then Gerald Soroka and Dane. And so that's people are interested in that information. And I don't like special interest groups that want to, if they're going to try to pull something, they're going to pay for it. They're not going to get a free article, put it that way. I don't want to get into one of those contests, as we talk about. Yeah,
and what I found, and again, from my perspective too, like I'd submit an article to you, and there's no issues, like it goes in. When I get it in on time. So there's always a cutoff, obviously. But so folks are watching out there. If I didn't get in, it's because, it's not Alan's fault. It's mine. I didn't get the damn thing in that week. But I've tried to submit the same articles or even pared back some of the word count to other ones. They don't want the message. They want something that is what they want to read as the editor. Like, it was pretty wild. So I've done what you suggested. If they didn't like it, I've paid for print. Yeah. But it's only been a couple times, and just out of being ornery, quite honestly. But when people are out there digesting their news, the other one I noticed too is a lot of the little papers are getting scooped up by the bigger ones, and those are the ones that don't want your MLA to speak directly to them the way I do. And I've had other colleagues having issues the same way. So support your little local papers out there. It's worth the postage stamp to make sure you got your subscription in place.
You had a holiday and you didn't write articles there for a while when it was down. Yeah. I had quite a few people call, what's happened with Shane?
Oh, is that right?
So they were looking, and particularly when you wrote that one series, they could carry over from series to series to series, you know. And then I find even we had, a lawyer write a couple of articles about buying houses and stuff like that. Well, people were calling me and saying, we threw the paper away. Can we get those 4 papers, those articles are in? Which means people are reading.
Yep.
And that's what it's supposed to be. And when I want a tradesman, I look in the back of my paper for a local tradesman,
Absolutely.
And so I patronize the local businesses too, and I encourage that. But another part of the reason I like this community, I've been in the Royal Canadian Legion in Onoway for quite a few years, and I've managed the kitchen there. And then I moved out to Share Hill, so I'm a member of the Royal Canadian Legion in Share Hill, but I'm also a member of the Share Hill Community Hall Association.
Okay.
And so I'm actively involved, and I try to give back to the community, the same community that I've made my living from the last few years. I very much believe in that.
Yeah.
You want to be part of the community. And I'm a big community member. That's the way I was raised.
Well, and I'm God bless you for doing that. You know, in our generation, my generation now, we're the grown-ups. It's our time to step up too. And there's been a gap. You know, I did a little town hall out in Callahoo, and it was on rural crime. So we had about 300 and some odd people there. That's when I was first elected. And I started talking about little things like Rural Crime Watch and Citizens on Patrol and those things. The folks in their 30s didn't know what this was. And when they finally realized they could be empowered and actually take care of their community and stop waiting for somebody else to do it, lo and behold, they fired it up again and crime rates went down. The same as the Legions. Like, if we don't make sure that there's membership, the Legions have been there as a stalwart in our areas and communities, being the glue holding them together for years. If we don't have fresh blood coming in, those things go away, and it's difficult to get them back. Ag societies, same thing. Like, so hats off to you for doing that. And, you know, maybe tell us a little bit why you stepped in to do those things, and how do we get new blood coming in?
Well, I was raised in a farm in Michigan, and it was a little bit different, but every Saturday night, either the local club, which was a women's organization, or the Grange Hall, or somebody had a family dinner dance party. And so Mom and Dad packed all of us kids went up, and we went, they danced, we played, or the baby slump, and so I've become really, really involved. I was involved in 4-H and FFA. We didn't have our ROTC. I had ROTC in the university. Yeah. But I remember the Legion out here in Onaway for so many years, and we were really lacking members. We're getting more now, but we need new membership. The old Legionnaires, the older ones, a lot of them really resisted bringing in new people who were not active military people.
Okay.
They were members of the military family, and that's I didn't like that, because I had 5 uncles in the Second World War.
Yep.
And when I moved to Share Hill, we were having the same place, but I seen Sangudu close down. Mayerthorpe almost closed down.
Yep.
COVID really hit the nonprofits terribly. So people got in a habit of not volunteering and going out to these things. But they're starting to come back. I seen the last half of 2023, those organizations are starting to get people coming back.
Well, I've seen younger veterans now too. You know, when I think of Afghanistan, I mean, those are veterans. Folks always think about World War II and even Korea, but Afghanistan wasn't that far away.
No, it's that's the same thing down there. Yeah. Same thing happening in my hometown. They said they've got a big jump into the Legion and VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars.
Yeah.
And so I think community involvement should be something we teach. They teach their kids and stuff. Get their kids involved in community, not just sports. Sports is very good but get them involved in the organizations where you get out and socialize. You meet people. You know how to socialize and talk to people. You know how to work together.
Yeah.
And I think we lack that ability to work together anymore.
Well, and I think the other one too that I've kind of observed, it's these things. So we've never had a time where we could be more connected, and yet we're disconnected from the people around us. We're disconnected from our communities. And the other one that was pretty frustrating, I'm going to get a little political here for a second, but the other one was pretty frustrating too, is there's an argument out there or a narrative where they have to go out and protest and be, you know, like a pigtail girl from Sweden come out over here telling us everything we do is wrong and go to some rally. Well, if you really want to do something, clean up your own damn room. Like Peterson says, clean up your own backyard. Go up and talk to the seniors. Go see what they need to do. You want a cause? You want to make the world different? Drop the little protest sign and roll up your shirt sleeves and pick up a broom and help folks out. Those are the type of things and the values I honestly believe we need to reinstill in the schools. We're going to start looking at that too. The schools used to be that center and that hub for everything that took place, also a gathering place. A lot of them got closed down, and they become these little insular things. So we got to get the kids out there involved again and having fun and pitching in.
Well, and this may sound funny to you, my grandfather and his younger brother were a different political stripe.
Yep.
Yet they worked on that farm all their lives together. They didn't talk about religion. They didn't talk about politics.
Yep.
But they respected each other's opinion.
Agreed.
Nowadays, if you disagree with me, they just throw a fit. I've got friends that I disagree with on 3 different sides of the political party here in the States.
Yep.
But we're still friends.
Well, there used to be a time, and hopefully it's a resurgence coming back, where you can have different opinions, and good that you do, because what comes out of those two different opinions is a better solution than any one of you had coming into that conversation.
Yeah, it certainly is. You know, you may not compromise on everything, but I think that's what's wrong with the political world in every part of the world.
Well, here's the conspiracy. I don't think it's by accident.
No.
Like, I've kind of used this analogy to a bunch of folks recently, and even amongst people of like-minded parties.
Yeah.
They fixate on the little things. And I said, okay, if I got a laser pointer, I got on the ground, I got all these cats chasing after the damn thing. What do you think the real thing that they're going to be doing off to the side if they get you all fighting amongst each other? So part of it is, if you can agree on 80% of the stuff, good, park the 20 that you can't and deal with the 80 that you can. Well,
that's kind of like marriage, I think, isn't it?
Well, I've been married for 23 years, so I'm not as experienced as you as that, but I'm trying to stick to this one. If I agreed with my wife 80% of the time, I'm friggin' walking on water like the good Lord himself. Yeah. So there's never been that chance where you can get that much agreement at home. So why do we get cross-threaded politically or anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, I see that so much in the universities now, and I think a lot of it becomes the way they're being taught. They're not being taught to think for themselves. I was taught to think for myself.
Yeah.
And I'm still that way. I was fortunate when the first time I could vote in the U.S., because we couldn't vote until we were 21.
Okay.
I voted for Kennedy. I voted for Gerald Ford. And you could split your ticket with no trouble there.
Yep.
And you voted for the person who was running, who you thought was the best person is the riding or constituency down there was different. But, that's just, and I was that way all the way through. But now it just seems we're so divided that we can't do that. And I think that's part of the politicians' fault, because you crack along the lines, and I don't like that, because I look at people I deal with who I respect. And, if they're running for a political office, even if they're a different party, if I think they're the best person for my area, I'm going to vote for them.
Well, so me being new to this, again, I kind of did the same thing. I typically voted Team Blue because I'm more aligned with them. But when you've got the areas and the process works, like on our side, every candidate has to run their own nomination. So you're running against other people from the same party. Not all parties do that. So when the electorate puts those people in those rooms, I can say hand on heart, than the Bible, the process works if you let it work properly, because the conversations and the dialogues that we have in caucus, we're very different in that room. And there's some pretty boisterous people in there. And when you have that taking place in the proper way, those good ideas come out. But to your point, I honestly thought a lot of the stuff that was in the papers from the opposition and being there was just conjecture or whatever. No, actually, it was pretty damn true. Like that first go around, there was about 5 that I could reach out across the aisle and talk to. The rest it was wild. So we worked really hard in this new go around. I'm the whip on our side, so I don't whip very many votes. We got pretty good consensus in that regard, and we really believe in free vote too. That's the other thing. If we really encourage that, and we encourage having that boisterous debate. But there's a good number of the new members from the opposition. I'm guardedly optimistic that we have a chance of getting some good stuff and working with them. So I'm hoping that starts to become the trend, and that folks out there take your advice. They listen to what all the candidates have to say. They get to know who they are, and then have that gut check when they go to the booth. Don't believe everything you see in the CBC and the XYZ. Go out and take the time to get to know people on one-on-one.
Well, I'm a newsaholic. I watch all TV channels, U.S. and Canadian. I read all of the newspapers. I get both my Journal and Sun every day, and I read them all. And there's certainly some very biased opinions on all sides. Yeah. And same thing as the radio stations and the television stations and everything. But I listen to all of them. And I was taught to, you got to sort out the fodder.
Yep. Yeah, you got to be able to do that. The other thing that's really picking up is the social media. Some concerns on that because the algorithms could be manipulated. But what we're doing here today, I am really a fan of these long dialogue type podcasts. I've been on a number of them. the reach that they can have is pretty wild. And the other one too is folks can digest it on their own time. So they'll download it, take a look at it. And then the follow-ups on those type of conversations, that's kind of back to the old days when you sit down at the farm table and you have a coffee and a biscuit and you take the time to have the conversation. That's kind of, I think, what the resurgence is on these.
Well, that was very much in the old days. The local politicians there in Onoway, Michigan, they would cover every farmyard
Yep.
in the county,
Yep.
visiting all the farmers and all the people. They would go to Grange Hall meetings, club meetings, where they could sit right down and talk to people.
Yep.
And I think that's really important. Because how do you know how people feel or what they want if you don't sit down and talk to them?
You don't. And the other one, I think it was Ralph Klein had kind of coined the phrase, when it comes to the lead, you get dome disease. You stay in there too long, you're disconnected, because it's an animal unto itself. And that's what I try to, through your paper, obviously, to connect with people there and get the feedback, and then as many local events as I can. And that's the whole shtick when I go, what matters to you? It's both two ends. There's a question mark and then also some days an exclamation point, making sure folks get it. But it's an iterative feedback loop. So when I go into the house, I do the best I can to say, here's what the folks in my area are saying. The other one, too, is an MLA. There's the folks that voted for me in my party. There's the folks that voted for me in the election. There's folks that didn't vote for me in the election because they voted for the other ones and didn't vote at all. And the oath I took is to represent everybody. And I take that very serious, too. So regardless of your political stripes, come into my office, have those conversations and everything else. And if you park the politics at the door, we can work on the problems pretty easy. So that's something I've done. And you might get a kick out of this, too. I've had some of the folks from the other political persuasions come in my office, and we had a meeting. And they couldn't believe that I was that agreeable and easy to get along with. It's like, well, don't believe what you read in some of the papers.
Well, I think is that you become part of the community, and that's what you need to be. Same thing with the newspaper business. I try to cover all aspects of the community, from 4-H, seniors' homes, government, everything. The people are interested. That's what I want in the paper.
Yeah.
We've got the Historical Society. Looking back articles are one of the most popular articles about the history of Onaway and all the old pictures and everything. And they miss one issue that they're supposed to be in. I get calls. Well, what's happened there? And the same thing was when you missed some when you were on holidays that year. Yeah. And Chrissy said, "Well, he's on holidays." Well, people didn't know that, but they certainly got to me and asked me.
Yeah. Well, I promise I'll be more diligent and make sure we get them out. And even when I'm on holidays, I'll try to bank up a few. And part of it, again, is appreciate the time and the effort, and maybe what we'll do here in the consciousness of time, because you and I can jaw all night long. I think we got to do another one of these. But the other one I've seen out there, too, is the kids, during COVID especially, they're losing hope. And they didn't know what they could be when they grow up, or what they wanted to be when they grow up, because they didn't know what they could be. And the other one, too, is I've heard a number of times, well, I'm just a farm kid. Well, I'm a farm kid, and you're a farm kid. Sky's the limit. So maybe some words of wisdom for the next generation and crop of Albertans and even Michigonians coming through. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say to them, learn to think for yourself and look for yourself. Don't have tunnel vision. Yeah. That's being taught to you. You form it yourself. You get a broad perspective of life, what's out there, and look at it. You never know what's around the next corner, but you got to try the corner.
Yeah. Those are words to live by.
I'm a pretty good example of that.
And how afraid were you of failure?
I never was.
Nice.
I'd try anything. If I failed, I'd say, well, lesson learned.
Yeah. Well, appreciate your time, Doctor. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege.
Thank you very much, Shane.
Thank you, sir. And don't be afraid to try.
Waking up the buzzard on an old Black County road. We're just rolling coal.